All right, so getting ready for our mini quiz on factoring. And again, just a couple of reminders here as we get started. With our breakdown sheet, rule number 1, same thing every time. Is there anything in common to factor out? But it's got to be something that's in all my terms, not just a couple of them. Okay, if I have 3 terms and 2 of them have x's, can't take any x's out. Okay, if I have 3 terms and 2 of them are divisible by 5, but the other one isn't, can't take anything out. So that's always my first job. So for instance, I look at this first one, x squared minus 9x. Do they have anything in common? They both have an x. Okay, so I'm going to pull the x out, and whatever's left over is what I'm going to go ahead and put in the parentheses. Now, when I say what's left over, what I mean is what can I times by x to get each of these terms? So I'm like, okay, x times what gets me to x squared? Well, another x. Because again, when we deal with exponents, x times x, not 2x, that'd be adding, it's x squared. And then x times what is negative 9x? Negative 9. And in this case, there's nothing else I can do with what's here in the parentheses, so that's as far as I can go. I'm like, okay, all right. So that kind of takes us through an example of our golden rule that we always want to look at first, but we're going to do that on every problem. So on number 2, do all 3 of those terms have anything in common? 2 of them do, but all 3? No. So this time, I can't use the golden rule. So then, if I'm having any questions, I look at the next part. I'm like, okay, let's see. There's 3 terms. 1, 2, 3. So I already checked step 1. I already did the golden rule. There was nothing in common. Is there a number in front of x squared? No. Well, it's p squared in this case. So do our diamond, or do our problem, where we're multiplying to get the number on the end, and adding to get the number in the middle. And we've talked before, if you're more visual, you may want to actually draw the little diamond out. Now, you don't have to, but if you feel more comfortable saying, okay, multiply to 30, add to 13, okay, I need 2 numbers. Now, in this case, I'm happy about one thing. Everything's positive, so I know both of these numbers are going to be positive. So what multiplies to 30 and adds to 13? 10 and 3. Okay, but you're not done. Make sure that you get the factored part in, which is putting your variable term first. And if you accidentally put x sometime, like I just about did there, it's not a big deal. And then just write these numbers in afterwards. And we're set. So you're like, okay, might not be too terrible. But there are some times on some of these, because I'm going to start jumping around a little, where you can save yourself some trouble. So let's say we go down to number 4. Again, not trying to beat this into the ground. Always check this first. Do those 3 terms have anything in common? I see the first 2 only have b's, so that's not going to help me. Is there a number that divides into 2, 32, and 126? Yeah. 2 does, and here's why that's important. If I didn't think of that, I'd have to do slide and divide right away on this, and that number is going to be really big, and I'm not real happy about that. But by taking a 2 out, by dividing out each of these by 2, again, if I go to the calculator, that's not a big deal. Look what happens. All of a sudden now, it's like number 2 was. It's a diamond type problem, and I don't have to do slide and divide with all those huge numbers. That's a good thing. So I know I'm going to have 2 sets of parentheses here. And again, I get the opportunity, I'll go ahead and do this on one more of them here. I'm doing it with the numbers that are in here. So I'm going to multiply to 63. And I'm going to add to negative 16. Now, I need to think about this for a minute. Multiply to a positive, add to a negative. What do I know about the signs of my 2 numbers? They both have to be negative. because it's either negative times negative is positive or positive times positive. Well, I know that's not true. So now I need two numbers. Sure, why not? So again, two numbers that multiply to 63 and add to 16. All right, rolling. Now again, if that's not your strength, there's ways around it, but I'm going to do that in a future problem. So I put the -9 and the -7 in here, but don't forget that 2 that I pulled out before needs to come along as well. And I get my answer that way. Okay, so there's several things that are going on with these to try and make us think a little bit. I'm going to skip down a little bit, roll down number 8 here. So number 8, again, do all three of those terms have anything in common? They don't all have B's, and unfortunately nothing divides into 7, 23, and 20 real nicely. You're like, okay, so let's see here. Now what? 3 terms, no, we got a number in front. Oh, slide and divide. Okay, and again, hopefully you wrote down that example on the back of your note sheet. Now, if you didn't, you're going to have another chance right here. So we're going to go into slide and divide mode. So let me move this up a bit. Now remember, slide and divide means that 7 is going to slide down to your end term. We're going to multiply. Ooh, this one's going to get a little uglier, but that's okay, because it's going to get us a chance to be able to work with some of this. So I go, okay, I got this. I'm going to multiply to -140. Whew. I'm going to add to 23. Now before I go into figure out the numbers mode, let's think about signs for a minute. Multiply to -140. What are my signs going to be? Yeah, we're going to have one of each. And I also know, since it adds to +23, that the positive is going to be the bigger number. Now, myself, I don't know off the top of my head, you know, what multiplies to 140, but it's 23 numbers apart. So I'm going to have to play a little bit here with the calculator. So, like we've talked about before, start small. You're like, yeah, those are way more than 23 apart, Harty. We need to get a bigger number. Like, let's try 4. Let's see if that starts getting us any closer here. Okay, 35. We're getting there. Wonder if 5 will work, because we're getting close enough that I'm starting to wonder. 5 and 28. Now let's, ooh, different signs, so it's subtract. Ooh, those are 23 apart. Okay, let's do this. +23, so the positive number has to be the bigger one. Okay, so notice, even if I'm not an expert and can snap off all the numbers for 140, their products off the top of my head, it didn't take me that long to use the calculator to get me where I needed to be. So, I take the numbers from the side of my diamond, put them into parentheses, but I'm not quite done. My last job now, because again, this is called slide and divide, is to take that number I slid, that number I multiplied before, and now divide it. If it goes in nice, that's super. 28 divided by 7 is 4. If it doesn't go in nice, make sure your fraction is reduced as far as you can, and it is. Nothing divides into 5 and 7. And we swing that back to the front. And I'm set. I mean, could you just guess and check on this one for a while and see if you get numbers that work? Sure, if you want to do that. We talked a little bit about that before. But this is the surefire way to get to the answer every time. So it's a route that I would decide that I probably would do most of the time when I'm doing these. So let's see here. I'm trying to think if there's any other crazy ones on here. Oh, I see craziness. Okay. Ooh, right towards the top even. So what if I go through one of these And I look and I go, okay, I got 2 more I want us to take a peek at here. So I look at a problem like 14. So I start to look. Do they have anything in common? 25 and 4? No. They both don't have a b, so that doesn't work. Okay. Oh, bless you. So let's see. We got 2 terms. 1, 2. Are they perfect squares? Ooh, they are. Because again, there's 25, there's 4. So we're good there. So I go, okay. So then I just ask myself, what do I multiply by itself to get 25? 5. Don't forget my b. What do I times by itself to get 4? 2. But then I go, oh, but I'm multiplying to get negative 4. So I have to have one of each of these. And it doesn't matter if you do the minus first and then the plus. Either one will do us just fine. And I'm good. So that's kind of a clue. Whenever you see the 2-termers, it might make life a little bit easier on you. Speaking of making life easier, if I look at 16, my first inclination, once I look at my golden rule here, and I go, okay, anything divide into all of those. 2 gives into that? No, not that. 4, 4? No. Crap, nothing goes in. I got to slide and divide. Wait. When you look at that, remember, if, this is a big if your first and last terms are both perfect squares, you can make this go a whole lot faster. Now I'm going to show you both ways so you can kind of see why it's worth your while to look at it. Remember, if it's 3 terms and they're both perfect squares, what do I square to get the first one? 4. What do I square to get the last one? 5. And then whatever sign's in the middle, I put there and I'm done. But what if I don't think about that? What if I forget? Can I still get to the answer? And the answer is yes. Yes, you can still get to the answer. What would that look like? Well, let me show you. What would happen here is that I'd do my slide and divide. Now some of you are like, oh my gosh, these numbers, this is going to get kind of big with numbers. It is. 16 times 25 is 400. Ooh. This isn't going to be a whole lot of fun. Because I'm multiplying to get positive 400. And adding to get negative 40. And I run through my normal process. Multiply to get a positive, add to get a negative. They're both negative. And I more than likely am going to go to my calculator and start going, okay, they multiply to 400 and add up to 40. 40 and 10, no. Oh, I heard it. Ooh, that didn't even work. But if you kind of keep messing with it and knowing the numbers got to be close, oh, 20 and 20, okay. And you're like, now I kind of see why you said looking for those perfect squares right away was kind of nice, because I was done a long time ago doing that. Divide by 16. Oh, and here comes our other part. You're like, Harty, 20 divided by 16 doesn't go in nice, so I just slide the 16 back here, right? Wait. Remember, when we're doing slide and divide, these got to be reduced to their simplest form. So if you're not sure that they are, use your fraction button, or in our case with our calculators, math, enter. Make sure they're reduced as far as they can. And then when they still aren't nice, that's when I can move it back to the beginning. And these two things are the same. Whether I write it as 4n minus 5 squared, which means there's 2 of them, or I write them individually, it's all right. But again, do I want to do all of this where if I'm just a little cautious and looking, tell in front, I can work this out. So it just kind of depends on some of these. So one last one to try and get that point across, and then I'm going to kind of let you loose here. So I look at 18. Ugh. 18. Does 50, 40, and 8 have anything in common I could pull out? Even if it's little. 2. Okay. So if I take out a 2, if I divide out a 2, I'm going to divide each of these numbers by 2. And I'm like, all right, I got to see if I can factor what's left inside now. Well, 25, 20, and 4 don't have anything in common, so I have to slide and divide, right? Look back at 16 for a minute and think about it. Do I have to slide and divide on 18? No. 25 and 4 are perfect squares. So I can make this go a whole lot faster by saying, ooh, what do I square to get my first term? 5. Don't forget my r, of course. What do I square to get 4? 2. Look at my sign in the middle. Plus. I squared, and then my last little detail. Got to remember to bring down that 2 I pulled out. So there can be several steps, but again, that's why you've got the breakdown sheet to help you as you're doing this. So your job now is to knock out the rest of this review. Okay, there's a key up front, so you can check some as you go to double check, and we'll do a mini quiz on this tomorrow before we get into some of our other notes.